Hey, you're listening to Blindsight. Let's go. Mental health isn't something to take lightly. It's time to fight. It's time to thrive. Let's do this.
Welcome to Blindsight. This is Bill Lundgren, your host, and today we're going to talk about aging and blindness. And I have with me a youngster named Jonathan Price, who's our producer. And welcome, Jonathan, for joining us.
Thanks, Bill. Good to be here.
I had an interesting discussion yesterday with someone I hadn't seen for a while. Just happened to run into her. Didn't hurt her when I ran into her, but...
of course. Did you beat her over the head with a cane, or did Aiden attack her?
Well, given that I'm blind, there's always a chance. The thing that was striking about our conversation was that she is going blind, and I think she's a little bit older than I am, and has had a full life. And she was, of course, very sobered by this fact. She has macular degeneration. And when we talk about older people, this is one of the things that's very common, and that's why I was wanting to start off with that. But, and she was sharing, she's lost sight in one eye and the other eye is going, and she's had to give up driving, and how difficult it was for her in a sense of independence. And I went over some of the resources, and she didn't know any of them. And I think she wasn't ready to hear them. And I have to be respectful of that. But since she's newly blind and older, that sort of highlights the difficulties that occur when we're getting older. We've got one issue to deal with. And then on the other hand, when we have the experience of blindness a while ago, we sort of say, okay, the blindness becomes a minor thing in a sense, and we are more focused on what it means to be older. But if someone is getting older and losing their eyesight, it's a double whammy. Yeah. And there's a lot there's grieving that comes in either case. And then you have two things to grieve at the same time. It makes it a little more difficult. And one of the things that concerns me in talking about this is that a go-to position for a lot of older people is just to isolate. And we've talked about the Surgeon General's report on loneliness some time ago, and I certainly would suggest to people to go in and see if they can find it. But it's real. This is the one thing we have to be particularly concerned about, is to let older people who are blind or going blind know that it's not the end of the world.
Sure.
And that's real hard.
Even though it might, it's a hard thing to overcome, especially if you are sighted, and let's say you're in your early mid 70s or even 60s, and you're starting to lose that vision. Yeah, you already feel like maybe the world is against you because you're getting older. Like, I was just joking with my daughter the other day, and I said, "Ava, never get old." And she's like, "Why?" I said, well, because, in my head, I'm still, 18 to 25 years old, and my body's like, the hell you are. And it doesn't work. And I can't do the things that I used to be able to do, but my mind is saying, keep trudging on, just that high five attitude. Let's go conquer the world. But, when you're in your later years, you're more seasoned and experienced, and you start to realize you can't do those things, and then your body starts failing you. That's just another notch in the belt, I guess, for me, is in terms of the grieving process.
The actress Betty Davis said it best. She said, getting old is not for sissies.
That's absolutely true.
And
yes,
but you see, part of it, the issue comes in for us to come to accept. But in order to do that, we have to go through the grieving process with either one, the blindness and aging, and blindness or aging, and be able to say, okay, my life, we get into all or nothing thinking. I can't drive, therefore my life is over. Or I can't do X, Y, Z, my life is over. And it's not. But it's hard when you're in the grieving process to acknowledge that and to begin to say, okay, no, my life is not over. And the problem is so many times older people, particularly with macular degeneration or, they don't know that there are other people out there who are going through the same thing that they can hook up with and they can talk to. And I'm not sure that ophthalmologists keep tabs on how somebody could, or optometrist or any of those, can let people know that there are resources out there that would help in the grieving process. There's support groups to help in the grieving process. I know in the Denver area, there is and I'm sure there are others, but out of the Colorado Center for the Blind, they have a senior program to help older people relearn cooking and things like that. Some people don't realize they can still do. They just have to, as the NFB says, do it differently.
Yeah.
And when you're older, you don't want to change. You don't want to do things differently. At least I don't.
That's exactly where I was going to go, because the older you get, the more, I'm just going to call it crotchety. Just call it for what it is.
Yeah.
the more attitude that older people will have, just because they've been around and they've lost that filter, or they have decided to let go of that propriety filter. But the other thing that can come into play is the denial of symptoms. So, for instance, losing the ability to see up close. People may just chalk that up to eye fatigue, or, whatever excuse they may have. Another one is like trouble distinguishing in colors, like blue and black. Sometimes that can start to go. And then
and it's a constant
just being able to adjust. Exactly. Adjusting to changing levels of light, to changing of environments, that kind of thing. If you start to experience those, or you're starting to get more headaches, or you're starting to realize that you're not seeing things the way they are supposed to be, or that you think they are, go see a doctor. Go see an eye specialist and get checked up, because the longer you put some of those symptoms off, the worse these problems can get.
And you see, the thing is, as we get older, we become more hesitant to go out anyway.
Right.
And then to have this just reinforces, and you feel totally, totally blocked. And you feel, I can't
you feel
do anything.
Isolated.
And, we become afraid even to go to a doctor to check it out. That's the big one. We want to say, oh, no, it isn't this. And, I've talked about the 5 stages people go through into coming to acceptance. And that's the first one, is to get past is the denial. And then, the signs are all there. And the sooner that we find out, the easier, I won't say easier, but it's a little more helpful when you have some time to kind of prepare for what's coming.
Well, and I think the denial of answers is another big factor. When you are so far down your own rabbit hole that you're not going to be able to see the light and be able to see kind of what is happening right in front of you, the longer it takes for you to embrace that, the more damage can be done. And there's quite a few different, age-related I guess diseases. You already talked about the MD, age-related macular degeneration, but there's also things like the diabetic retinopathy that kind of affects older people.
Whatever,
Yep, glaucoma, cataracts, dry eyes, even just as simple as dry eyes. When when your tear glands, they don't work that well. That could be another big issue. And so kind of moving forward, what are are there some activities or some health tips that people may be able to kind of increase their vision use for longer?
Increase the vision?
No, I mean like increase their
mobility
decrease
is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I think there are a number of things. One is to, believe it or not, guide dog schools are now getting gentler dogs, or looking at gentler dogs for older people. So that's not cut off if you're willing to try having a guide dog to help you, even if you have some sight.
Yeah.
The other, I think one of the other things is, and this is so hard, but to ask, so, if you're in unfamiliar or having to go to unfamiliar territory, ask somebody to go with you and kind of help you learn what this new environment is. Because a lot of what enables us to survive is memory. I even have to use memory with my dog because I know the pavement under my foot, and I know which direction he's taking me. I know he's very obedient, but sometimes he wants to go another route to get back to the building. And I need to know that. But because I've done it so many times and I've paid attention, that's my signal. If I were working with a cane, all the more. And certainly there are mobility instructors available to help you learn how to use a cane, the white cane, which everybody hates.
Yep.
But it works. And, a school service for the blind can help you obtain one. I even know a service in Boulder, Colorado. They even provide white cane for people, meaning after sight.
Yep,
and
that's right.
So, and get someone to help you kind of get over the hesitancy and realize that you see the person who helps has to be someone who is not going to overdo it. In other words, and you have to explain to them, look, I have to learn, but what I need is for you to tell me if I'm starting to get into trouble, or to help me out in that situation till I learn this route, or whatever it is I want to learn. And, that can start to move you forward. You also, to hook up with different programs, like even after sight, you can hear your local newspaper. There's a lot of audio stuff that's available from after sight for people to be able to use their ears instead of their eyes to keep up with what's going on. And the audio books, I know, when I talk about that, that's much more advanced because people have to bite the bullet and say, yes, I can't read anymore. So I have to get an audio book or whatever. And the preliminary period, I think, more than anything, is to find out what resources, support groups that are available for people, older adults, who have a severe vision problem, and try to hook up with that. But the other thing, too, I think, is if you have family or friends, let them know how you're feeling about it. I know people tend to hide when they feel distressed, or even hide the symptom that they're having trouble seeing. But the more we're willing to talk about it with other people, the more that they will be willing to be supportive. And they might say to you, what do you need from me? Well, maybe for the time being, You might need somebody to go with you to the grocery store or do some groceries for you, or find some ways that you can work around the limitations. You can't work around the driving. If your vision is that point, you give up. You have to give up the keys. But that's that's not necessarily blindness. I had to yank the keys away from my mother for her beloved BMW. She was a flashy lady. And in fact, it was a car that I thought she bought used, but I think it may have been from a drug dealer, because it was one of these red leather. It was like, beyond someone who was 80 driving around. But that was my mother. But the thing is, that had nothing to do with her sight. It just happened she let somebody slip that she was driving on the wrong side of the road. Oh, and I thought, I don't think that's so cool. This is not England.
No, yeah.
So, so that's happening to people who don't have a vision problem. The point is, you want to be safe. You want to be able to get where you go, where you want to go, but you just have to do it differently. And this is when it really, in many ways, particularly for older people who live alone, this is a great way to build friendships. When you and a friend go out and do something together, and the friend would love to do it, maybe they need to get out. And so be able to do it with you, it means crossing that barrier and being honest with others about what's going on for you. And I know we're all very independent. We don't want to depend on anybody. We don't trust that we can depend on anybody, and yada, yada, yada. Do I need to say more?
Right. Yes. So what would be some healthy tips to maintain what vision you have if you're not ready to, if you're kind of, I guess, on the fence about your vision loss, and you want to maintain the eyesight that you currently have? Maybe you're not ready for a guide dog. Maybe you don't need a cane yet. Maybe it's just kind of low vision. Are there some good things in your mind that you've seen to kind of, I guess, prolong that diagnosis?
Well, I think in terms of if you're hesitating to do something because you're not sure about your vision, then you don't want to take a mountain hike right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
To push yourself a little bit and do a little bit more. That is, asking a friend to go with you to the grocery store. Do something just a little bit so you don't overwhelm yourself. It has to be a very slow process to say, okay. And also, when you're not quite sure, have somebody with you and try out to see what you do see. Now, one of the interesting things, a friend of mine who's loved French cooking, and she was partially sighted, but she was afraid that she was going to not be able to do cooking. And she discovered when she was doing cooking in blindfolds, she discovered that she never really used her eyes very much, because it touch, it taste, it smell, all those other senses. But we don't know that until we try it out. In a safe environment where we've taken care of, made sure that nothing's going to happen, to try out certain things and see how much you can do. And then you can make a game plan as to where you go from there.
Yeah.
And believe me, particularly when you're getting older, you don't want to, when we were young and stupid, we'd go from 0 to 60 miles an hour. We don't need to do that.
Right.
We need to do it and be okay with taking our time.
Right. It's 0 to 60 sometimes. But there's some other preventative things that you can do to maintain like some of the eyesight that you have. I think of stopping smoking if you can. Make good healthy food choices, things that are going to help your eyes. Being physically active, you mentioned going on a hike, and then check and see if you have any other physical ailments. Diabetes is one of the highest and biggest causes of blindness for people. I think getting those checked, making sure you're seeing your doctor, making sure you're being healthy and maintaining what eyesight you have can also help lead to not losing your vision as quickly as you might otherwise.
Yeah, there's some shots apparently which are helpful. And my friend is having, of course, she's afraid of needles, but she's having to get over that. But the point is, your doctor, as soon as you start to, sense that there's some problem, see your doctor. Talk to the doctor and say, look, this is what's going on. Do I have to worry? Do I have to worry about it? Do I have to do anything now? So that you can prolong as much as possible what may be in the process of happening, or find some way that'll stop it. But because there's so many people out there who, I hesitate to say, oh, you could do this, this, and this. No, it really is a doctor-patient kind of thing, and to check out your eyes. And sometimes just, some people, particularly as we get older, we're not getting enough sleep. And that can impact, certainly in terms of our ability to pay attention, not eyesight, but to pay attention. So that sometimes we have to do something to make sure that physical activity, making sure that our eyes are kept in good condition, as you were saying, with eye drops or whatever it may be, to prolong the possible deterioration of your eyes. There's a lot of things that we can do, and as I say, a lot more resources out there for people, seniors, to to get involved in groups. Their exercise classes, their social groups. The church can be a good resource in terms of friends and helping. The one thing we want to do, and this is also, I send this message out to family members, we don't want to isolate. That's the worst thing we can do for ourselves, is to isolate. And to get out and try. One of the things is that audiobooks are available, like with Audible.com, which, we pay for, not at an expensive price, but you get books, you can get used to listening to audiobooks now while you still have eyesight. And it becomes, and then if you qualify, you can go to the Library for the Blind, which costs you nothing.
Yeah.
And, and just be able to figure out also what it is that you enjoy doing. Can you do it without eyesight, or with a minimum amount of eyesight? And if that's true, what do you need to do? What do you need to know in order to be able to do that? Like my friend with the French cooking, she had to have the experience, and then she knew she could do it. And that's so empowering.
Yeah. Well, you also... I lost my thought. I guess you also want to make sure that you're able to adapt to your changing situation, because, like, if you were, I think of when I play the piano, and if I lose my sight, I know that I'm still going to be able to play the piano because I've learned to play with my eyes closed. Just as a form of either meditation, or I'm trying to understand where my fingers are in relation to the keyboard so that I can sight read better. I mean, there are things that you can do to adapt to whatever hobbies you want to do, even sewing and crafting and things like that. It can be a very tactile thing. Like my daughter does crochet, and, she can do that with her eyes closed and just, knit a hat out of nothing, and it's not just about losing your vision. You're not losing your life. I think that's a big thing that we need to make sure people take away from this, is that we're not losing our lives. We're losing a portion of what a sense that we had.
Well, the other thing is that we need to look at our home and make sure that obstacles, that you're comfortable moving around your home. You can even try it with your eyes closed or blindfolded. While you still have vision, and see if there's some things you need to move or put away, whatever, just so that you have the comfort of your home. And with the elimination of issues, I'll tell you, one of the things that's been such a boon to me, there's something called Pen Friend, which is, you label, all my clothes are labeled so that I can dress without any sight at all and have a coordinated outfit, because these little dots will take a half hour of information that you record, and you use the pen to play it back. And I had a friend who came, and in fact, some of the clothes I've kept, even though I don't wear them anymore, because I'm delighted in the way she describes them. And, it's just a lot of fun. But there's so many handy things that are now available that didn't used to be available.
Yes. Yep.
Takes work. It takes work.
It does.
But any change,
it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, any change that we have does require some adjustment in the way that we operate, regardless of whether it's aging, whether it's eyesight, whether you get have an unfortunate accident and you're in a cast or a boot or whatever. We have to do things differently. And then we, in that way, we can feel like we have some command on what's going on around us, and not feel like we're totally giving up.
Well, what's your final thought, Bill? What do you want to leave with the audience?
My final thought is deal with the mental blockages that are keeping you from stepping forward when you have any kind of major change. And usually it's grief and loss. The rector of my church has left, and there's a lot of sadness, but we know that, we'll get through it. It's just we have to acknowledge that we're sad that he's had to leave. And it's like anything in life, we go through the same process of adapting, and we can do it if we allow ourselves to. It's an exciting world.
It is. And some would argue that it's even more exciting when you can't see it.
Yeah. It's a challenge. Treat it as a challenge rather than a barrier.
For sure.
Okay. This is another episode of Blindside. Bill Lundgren, thank you, Jonathan, for being on today. For any of you who want to give any feedback, there are two ways that you can do it. One is you can send us an email, feedback@aftersight.org, or by telephoning our feedback line, which is 720-712-8856. Did I get that right, Jonathan?
Perfect. That was it.
Okay. Anyway, great to have you aboard. We'll connect next time. Take care.